sweat and my rust. I'm breathing in the chemicals.
Welcome to Weencast Weencaps, Season 1 of the 100, the We Are Grounders season. I am your Ween. So, the best way to describe this show is like, what if you were playing RimWorld one day and for some reason you thought, I bet this would make a great teen drama. And also, you were a guy who's been accused of significant on-set misconduct, and your only other notable credit was as a production assistant on Harmony Korine's Julian Donkey Boy. That's this show in a nutshell. Technically, it's based on a YA book series, but like other than the basic concept and some character names, I don't believe that they stuck by that inspo very closely. Blanket content warning for any time I discuss the 100, just like the content warnings on Netflix say violence, self harm, suicide, disturbing content, death, gore, cannibalism, hate, kill, pain, torment, agony. Also, a little bit of sex. Still a CW after all. Also, obviously, spoilers for the whole run of The 100 because the premise of this series of videos is that I tell you what happens in the show. Season premise. Once upon a time, there was a nuclear war, and the last survivors of humanity lived all together in a big space station called the Ark, which is made up of every nation's space station welded together. And life on this space station is so precarious and so totalitarian that every crime is automatically punishable by death via spacing, which they call floating, unless you're under the age of 18. This is where the YA book series basis really shows. If you're under 18, you get put in jail until your 18th birthday, when you face a review board that decides if you get to rejoin society or suffer execution by floating. But lately, the leaders of the Ark have kind of gotten away from that idea because they've decided that instead of sending the latest crop of delinquents through this review process, they're going to stuff all 100 of them, yes, that's the name of the show, into a dropship and deposit them on Earth to check it out and see if, like, the radiation's done or whatever. It's a brilliant idea and it makes total sense. And thus our story begins. The themes of this season become kind of the perennial themes of the show about the cost of survival, value of peace, the intractability of conflict, and wouldn't it be fucked up if teenagers did like fucking war crimes, man? Main character catch up. This is our first main character catch up, so it's really more of a main character intro. Our heroes, the morally bankrupt and ludicrously violent remains of a dying human race. I consider The 100 to be one of the bleakest, most nihilistic television shows I've ever seen, which is what fascinates me about how it is also a CW show most famous for its ship drama, but I guess the same is also true of Riverdale. Our lead protagonist is Clark Griffin, played by Eliza Morley, or as she was credited then, Eliza Taylor. Clark is that girl from school who takes over the group project and micromanages everything. And yes, like, the project is better now, but also nobody else has a sense of ownership over it anymore. This isn't a criticism. I'm also that girl. Clark has a mom, Abby Griffin, who's head doctor on the Ark, and Clark used to have a dad, but he was floated due to personal reasons. Clark's crime that got her incarcerated and then dumped onto Earth is actually her father's crime. And her father's crime was trying to tell the people of the Ark that its tech is failing and it will become uninhabitable much sooner than predicted. One thing I like about Clark is that she's left-handed, like me. That's shallow, but there it is. This is a noticeable fact about her because her non-murder related character trait is that she likes to do charcoal drawing. The other kind of protagonist figure, deuteragonist if you will, is Bellamy Blake, played by Bob Morley. Yes, it's the same Morley as Eliza Morley. No, I will not address this further in this video series because I do not care. Bellamy is a guy who's obsessed with protecting his younger sister, Octavia. His constant refrain, bequeathed upon him by his mother, is, "My sister, my responsibility." He's not actually a teen convict, but he works his way onto the dropship as part of a deal with the revolutionary faction on the Ark. In exchange for passage with Octavia down to the ground, he shot the Ark's chancellor, the improbably named Thelonious Jaha, about whom we will talk more later. Bellamy's sister, Octavia Blake, played by Maria Avgeropoulos, is also an important character. Octavia grew up in a hole under the floor of the Ark. It's actually illegal to have more than one child on the Ark, but Bellamy's mom became pregnant in secret and had a second child, Octavia, who became Bellamy's responsibility. So Octavia grew up in hiding, with Bellamy as her only social contact, until one day he came up with a way to have her attend a teen costume party, finally meet other youths. But she was caught and arrested, and their mom was floated. Octavia doesn't feel accepted by the other people from the Ark, mostly because everybody who sees her says, "Oh my god, is that the girl who was under the floor?" And so she quickly falls in love with the ground, specifically one of its inhabitants, the handsome and Chadley grounder, Lincoln. Another of the ground-bound delinquents is Finn Collins, played by Thomas McDonnell. Finn is like a hot, cool guy who does art and he flirts with Clark. Turns out he has a girlfriend back on the Ark, though, lol. He was arrested for taking an illegal spacewalk and wasting a significant quantity of oxygen. Although, to be fair, later it turns out that this wasn't entirely his fault. I fucking hate Finn. No offense to Thomas McDonnell. I just really have like a personal visceral dislike of this character, and that's totally on me, not on Mr. McDonnell or even the writers of the show. Also, it will be funny how it all ends up for Finn, so that's something to look forward to. Another of the delinquents is Monty Green, played by Christopher Larkin. Monty's actually the only nice person still alive in the entire universe. He's good with computers and agriculture, especially algae, though that's not important yet. And he's really a sweet dude who doesn't do too much this season, other than hang out with his best pal, Jasper Jordan, played by Devin Bostick. Jasper is a less sweet and more stringy dude than Monty, who gets a crush on Octavia and then gets impaled and then gets traumatized in pretty quick succession. He's a bit of a stoner, and he and Monty were both incarcerated for drug crimes. Jasper's also a bit of an anxious fellow, probably is the impetus for the stonage, and that anxiety, I'm gonna be real with you, does not serve him well in this world. Alongside these other delinquents is Wells Jaha, a name that's hard to say because it's really obviously made up. Wells is played by Eli Gorey, and he's the son of Chancellor Jaha, who leads the Ark. He used to be Clark's best friend, until she discovered he's the one who sold out her dad and got him floated. Wells finds out the plan to drop the delinquent youths to the ground from his dad and decides to commit a crime so he can go with them, damaging the Ark's one special holy tree in order to get arrested. Wells is a good kid, so you know how it's gonna end for him. There's also some adults on this show. I mean, everyone on the show is an adult because it's the CW, so they're all adults pretending to be teenagers. But there are some diegetic adults on this show. There's Abby Griffin, played by Paige Turco. Abby is Clark's mom and the main doctor on the Ark, as well as a member of the ruling council. She used to have a husband named Jake, who was an engineer, but he got floated for trying to warn everyone that life on the Ark was unsustainable. Abby is a very compassionate person, as you would want for a doctor. Constantly clashes with another counselor, Marcus Kane, who is much more ruthless. Marcus, who is played by Henry Ian Cusick, is the head of like security or something, I think. And he is a very I did what I had to do kind of guy who will try to save the Ark and the many, even if it comes at the expense of the few. Marcus Kane is genuinely a great character, and I'm mad about how invested I was in his arc. Finally, there's Chancellor Thelonious Jaha, played by Isaiah Washington. He's the Chancellor, i.e., the guy in charge of the Ark, and he's a serious but fair-minded dude. He does have a slight tendency towards zealotry and black and white thinking, but that definitely won't be important later, so don't worry about it. Jaha really genuinely sincerely cares about the people under his charge, so you know it's not gonna go good for him. Recurring character roundup. Yes, that's right. We're not even close to done with the characters. The show is called The 100. There are basically 100 characters. We have Raven Reyes, played by Lindsay Morgan. Raven is a talented and kind of cocky, arrogant, zero-gravity mechanic / engineer. She isn't one of the 100, but she does end up on Earth pretty quick. Also, she is Finn's girlfriend. Man, oh man, Is it awkward when your girlfriend drops in from space to find you getting cozy with another girl? This sets off a bad love triangle storyline. Never change the CW, by which I mean please do change in this regard. Another recurring delinquent, John Murphy, played by Richard Harmon. Murphy is God's own fuck up. Murphy is the worst of the 100. Murphy is, I don't say this lightly, a little bit of a Satan. I'm pretty sure his crime is arson, which is double bad on a space station. But also, if you can think of a crime, he did do it. He literally gives everyone a light case of hemorrhagic fever at one point. Representing the Grounders, we have Lincoln Tree Crew, played by Ricky Whittle. Yes, you thought Ricky Whittle was too famous to be on a show like this. Turns out, I have to do some humiliating things to become famous. Lincoln is a Chadley Grounder, that means Earth person, who falls in love at first sight with Octavia. His name is Lincoln because he's from by the Lincoln Memorial. Yes, I shit you not. The first half of this show takes place in the Capital Wasteland. Also,
Eric Jackson, played by Sachin Sahel.
Jackson is Abby's assistant physician and an all-around pretty nice dude. Obviously, his life will be ruined soon, but I'm going to be really, really real here and say I don't think he does anything notable enough in this season to even warrant a mention down in the plot summary section. He's also among the delinquents Harper McIntyre, played by Chelsea Rice. Harper is a girl with a crush on Jasper, whom he shoots down brutally because he's hopelessly pursuing Octavia. But here comes Monty on the rebound. Not for a couple seasons, though. And in a special recurring segment, it's Miller time. Yes, that's right. Everyone's favorite character, Nathan Miller, played by Jared Joseph. Miller does a lot of generic guard guy stuff in this season, which is good because he's going to do a lot of generic guard guy stuff in the next 6 seasons after this. He does things like calling out exposition, like, "The Grounders are here!" And he also convinces Clark to close the shuttle and begin her first mass killing. There's also some even smaller characters who come in and out of various episodes, most notably Anya, played by Deachin Lockman, who is leader of the local group of Grounders. Sinclair, chief engineer of the Ark, played by Alessandro Giuliani, will be important in later seasons. And Wick, an Ark engineer played by who the fuck ever, who will not be important later, but he will continue to be annoying. What happens? Our heroes, 100 teen criminals, are unceremoniously dropped to the radiation-scorched Earth to look around and see if it's suitable for human life again or not. Meanwhile, the adults stay up in the Ark and observe them through special bracelets that monitor their vital signs, but can't be used to communicate directly, radio communications having been damaged in the bumpy descent to Terra. There's other interference with radio communications, but the source of this interference doesn't really become clear until Season 2. Surprisingly, it's pretty decent down on Earth. It's not actually soaked in radiation despite the mutant animals. There's no apparent hostiles upon arrival. There's no poison in the air at first, and it looks suspiciously like British Columbia and not at all like the Washington, D.C. greater metropolitan area the way that it's theoretically supposed to be. There's immediately some disagreement among the teens as to how life on Earth should be managed. Clark thinks the 100 should do like Jaha and the other adults instructed, and look for the hidden bunker at Mount Weather, which is actually a real place, where there might be supplies and things that can help them signal to the Ark that the ground is safe. Bellamy thinks they should break off their wristbands, make the adults think they're all dead, found a new society based on the principle of, and I quote Mr. Blake here, whatever the hell we want. The teen cast quickly divides around these two figures, and Clark takes a small exploration party made up of herself, Finn, Octavia, Monty, and Jasper to look for the Mount Weather bunker. She doesn't take Wells because she's still mad at him for being the reason her dad died. The teens tangle with some nasty radiation critters, but make it to the slopes of Mount Weather, only for Jasper to be impaled through the chest with a huge spear by an unknown assailant. Meanwhile, back in camp, Wells realizes that half the people on the ground with him hate his dad for his unflinching enforcement of the Ark's dumb laws. This anti-Wells sentiment is being stirred especially hard by one John Murphy, who can't spell super great but knows how to get his point across. And his point is that Wells should die as recompense for Chancellor Jaha floating Murphy's dad, as well as Bellamy and Octavia's mom, Clark's dad, a bunch of other people's parents, etc., etc. Back in space, Chancellor Jaha is on the brink of death after being shot by Bellamy in exchange for his passage onto the dropship. Abby, Clark's mom, expends all possible effort to save Jaha's life, specifically so she can prevent old whatever we have to do Kane from becoming Chancellor. She doesn't want Kane to institute his population reduction plan, which will save ARC resources by asphyxiating 300 plus people. Jaha survives and manages to delay the implementation of the population reduction plan for 10 more days. Abby, worried about how many of the 100 have dropped out of her monitoring program, contacts talented young zero-gravity mechanic Raven Reyes and asks her to repair an old two-person dropship so that Abby and Raven can go to Earth and check up on things. Back on the ground, Clark and company are freaking out about Jasper getting impaled. The as-yet unseen grounders string him up as bait, healing him just enough so he can continue to scream and draw his friends to his position. Also, Murphy is continuing to try and get Wells killed, but he doesn't kill Wells yet, and the others get Jasper down and manage to get him back to camp before he dies. Instead, he just suffers in agony for days on end. Murphy then also tries to kill Jasper because his screams of agony are annoying. Clark objects to this, and so she, Finn, and Wells set out to find the herbs that the grounders used to keep Jasper alive. On this boondoggle, they discover that there is periodically a deadly greenish fog that overtakes the region and kills anyone who breathes it in. Wells, Finn, and Clark take shelter in an abandoned bunker, and Wells tries to make amends to Clark, who shoots him down. Simultaneously, we learn that there are some very young convicts on this drop, like a tween named Charlotte, whom Clark and Bellamy both take under their respective wings. While out hunting, Bellamy and Charlotte also get caught in the fog and hide in a cave. Bellamy, unable to control the big brother instinct he's cultivated in taking care of Octavia, gives Charlotte some brotherly advice to help her deal with the trauma of watching her parents get floated by Chancellor Jaha. He says something like, "Slay your demons, kiddo." And unfortunately, this will not pay off the way that he hopes. Once the fog clears, everyone heads back to camp, meeting up near the dropship. There they find Octavia's brief boyfriend, Atom, succumbing to the fog in a state of horrific agony. Bellamy and Clark stay with him, and Clark puts him out of his misery. Neither notice Charlotte watching from the trees. Clark uses the medicine she, Finn, and Wells got to save Jasper, and Finn convinces her Wells is a good guy who seems to be covering up something to do with her dad's execution. Clark finds Wells and learns that it was her own mother that turned her dad in, not Wells. They're friends again, and she's mad at her mom, obviously. But what's this? It's Charlotte with the steel chair. Following Bellamy's advice and Clark's example, Charlotte assassinates Wells using Murphy's knife as revenge for the execution of her parents. Clark is understandably distraught at Wells' death and the revelation that her mom got her dad killed, so she finally removes her vitals wristband, sending Abby spiraling back up in space with the thought that her daughter is dead. Smart Monty is trying to reverse engineer a new comm system from the defunct wristbands, but instead all he does is blow out all the wristbands, making the folks on the Ark think all the teens are now dead. At first, our heroes blame the Grounders for Wells' death, but soon they discover Murphy's knife at the scene, and blame understandably shifts to the worst person we know, since he has not only motive and opportunity, but also evidence. The 100 call for an extrajudicial killing, again, understandably, and though Clark tries to talk them down, they prepare to lynch Murphy. Looking to Bellamy as their cool, fun leader, the crowd demands he be the one to kick the support out from under Murphy's feet and let him swing. Bellamy, caving to the worst kind of peer pressure, does it, and Murphy is officially lynched, which of course is when Charlotte admits that it was her that killed Wells. So they cut Murphy down after all. Now, Murphy is my favorite character on this show, and I love all of his storylines that are coming up, but this was unequivocally a huge mistake on the part of our heroes. Murphy will still be fucking them over literally hundreds of years from this moment. I mean, canonically. Yes, this show is gonna get weird. Now, Murphy is a little bit miffed about being lynched, and so he wants Charlotte hanged the same way. Finn, Clark, and Bellamy get upset about this, so they flee with Charlotte. Murphy gets together a new, smaller lynch mob, he's not a natural leader, and confronts them all at the edge of a cliff. Rather than cause further conflict, Charlotte, consumed by guilt, throws herself off the cliff, and Bellamy, enraged by this whole pointless murder-counter-murder exercise, banishes Murphy forever, never to be seen again. He doesn't know what we know, which is that Richard Harmon will be on the opening credits by season 3. Triple distraught at this point, Clark takes Finn to the hideout bunker, and they fuck. But unbeknownst to them, Raven has finished fixing the pod and launched herself to Earth, leaving Abby behind to take responsibility for the illegal pod launch. So even as Finn cheats, his girlfriend is speeding towards him at hundreds of miles per hour. Air's getting critically low on the Ark, so Kane's plan to vent 320 people is voted through the legislature, and everyone agrees they're going to do it to the population by surprise. This is troubling. If only there was someone headed to Earth in a little spaceship with a radio who could tell them it was safe to come to the ground right away and they could leave the Ark behind without culling innocent civilians. Speaking of which, Raven lands, messily, hitting her head and passing out and being delirious for a while. But Finn and Clark see the reentry arc in the sky and head towards the landing site. But so does Bellamy. Bellamy's in a pissy mood because Octavia told him to stop fucking around with murder and anarchy and stuff and then blaming his behavior on trying to protect her, when in actuality, he's mostly very scared about how he'll be punished for his assassination attempt on Jaha if the grown-ups ever make it to the ground. After they fight, Bellamy and Octavia go their separate ways, and Octavia trips down a hill and hits her head and passes out. Not kidding. In a fit of pique, at the landing site, Bellamy rips the radio out of Raven's spaceship and tosses it into the lake, sinking any chance of stopping the culling of 320 innocents on the Ark. Raven is a bit mad about this. And back up in space, when the truth about the oxygen shortage gets out, instead of being understandably mad about how their leaders were going to dispose of them, 320 people on the Ark volunteer to get space to save their friends and family. Would that they knew. If only someone hadn't chucked Raven's radio into a lake. Our heroes try a new method of contact to stop this mass murder. Setting off high-altitude flares or something like that, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it works. The people on the Ark see them up in the atmosphere, but not in time to save 320 people from being asphyxiated to death. In space, Kane, and on the ground, Bellamy, discover an enormous sense of shame for unwittingly consigning 320 people to die voluntarily and meaninglessly. When the 320 corpses are vented off of the space station, our heroes can see them burning up on re-entry like shooting stars. Depressed, Bellamy realizes that his sister is also missing. Whoops! But fear not, Octavia is fine. She was rescued from her head bumping by the Chadley and handsome grounder, Ricky Whittle as Lincoln. He's keeping Octavia chained up in his cave, but it is in a nice, helpful way. Don't worry about it. Bellamy doesn't know this, though, so he sets off with a number of the other teens to search for Octavia. They, of course, lose 3 or 4 more teens to grounder traps and whatnot during this search. But they do find Octavia, who's actually managed to overpower Lincoln momentarily and free herself, giving Bellamy and Finn the opening they need to knock Lincoln out. But in the course of the struggle, Lincoln stabs Finn in the gut. Good one, Lincoln. Bellamy wants to kill Lincoln for this, but Octavia persuades him not to, so they drag the stabbed Finn and the captured Lincoln back home to the dropship. Our heroes have a captive grounder, a wounded Finn, and a major storm headed their way. To weather the storm, they've sealed up all the living 100 in the dropship, which should be great for morale. Also, Clark smartly recognizes that as a trainee medic at best, she's not qualified to save Finn from a serious abdominal stab wound, especially with the blade still in there. Also, it's very awkward because Raven has clued in that Finn and Clark have a thing, and both Raven and Clark are very upset about Finn's imminent death. But they put aside their differences for now to get the radio to the Ark working and to get Finn saved. Not that things are going super great back up on the Ark. Kane is feeling very bad about how he killed all those people for nothing. Also, so are those people's families, and they kind of want to give Kane the Murphy treatment. Jaha intervenes and saves Kane, rallying the people around the prospect of making it to Earth. But he doesn't mention, except his inner circle, that the remaining dropship only seats 700, but there are thousands of people left on the Ark. Abby is also in big trouble for independently sending Raven to Earth, and though she won't be executed because of her essential skills, she's off the Ark's ruling council. And now she has to guide Clark through a delicate surgery via radio, and Clark's pissed at her for accidentally condemning Dad Griffin to death. Abby and Clark do succeed in the surgery, but Clark is not ready to put aside her anger at her mom. And Finn's not out of the woods yet because Lincoln's blade was poisoned. Our heroes, not stupid, figure Lincoln must have the antidote, but they don't know how to get the info out of him. So Bellamy and Clark torture him. Really torture him. And Murphy's not here, so we can't even say it was his idea. They whip Lincoln with a seatbelt. They stab through his hand with a huge nail. Raven joins in and gives him repeated electric shocks. But he won't break till Octavia, horrified by his torture, threatens to self-harm until her brother and company quit it, and Lincoln gives up the info. Lincoln indicates the antidote, and in a private moment between himself and Octavia, lets slip that the Grounders do in fact know regular American English, as well as their own language, Trigetta slang. In between zapping Lincoln, Ravens also found time to continue improving the radio, and she can now make Zoom calls to the Ark. Jaha instructs the teens to go looking for a smaller bunker nearby that might have some handy supplies. It's critical that they stock up because it turns out it's fall and winter is on the way, so they'll need food and warm clothes, and they've done jack shit to stock up or survive until now. Stupidly, Bellamy and Clark head out to look for the bunker alone, just the two of them, because they're both enemies with all their actual friends right now. And all Clark and Bellamy find in the bunker is a significant quantity of automatic weapons, which should be a great addition to their teenage death colony. In camp, everybody's snacking on the nuts that grow around this area, but they're also starting to act a bit weird. Octavia realizes the nuts are psychoactive, and sneakily she doses Lincoln's guards and frees him so he can move through camp while being mistaken for a hallucination by the others. Finn, who's also not stoned, allows this to happen. But oh, what's this? Clark and Bellamy also took those nuts as their snack for the bunker trip, and now they're stoned and heavily armed, too. And another of the teens is trying to assassinate Bellamy under orders from the Ark revolutionaries, who are covering their tracks after ordering Bellamy to assassinate Jaha. Stoned Clark and stoned Bellamy have to pause in hallucinating their guilt via images of Clark's dad and Jaha, respectively, to kill the traitor. And Clark, now sympathetic to Bellamy's guilt, helps him get on Zoom when they get home and get a pardon from Jaha because of all Bellamy has done to lead the 100, which is, what? Lynching Murphy? Finn's having similar thoughts to mine, and is feeling also very sketchy about arming the 100 with automatic weapons. He and Clark have a fight about it, and also about Raven. Back up in space, it's the Ark's one big holiday, Unity Day, and our heroes are tuned in via Zoom to see the Unity Day pageant, when the adorable space children recite the story of how the Ark was formed. However, the festivities are interrupted by an explosion. The revolutionaries aboard the Ark have set off a bomb, which is kind of an extra big deal on a space station. Kane's mom dies, tons of people are wounded, and the revolutionaries take this opportunity to steal the last remaining dropship, leaving everyone else to die in the failing space station while they flee to Earth. Our heroes, unaware of all this, chalking up the cut Zoom connection to the weird radio problems that plague this area, continue on with their Unity Day festivities. Everyone but Finn and Octavia, that is. Octavia, as it turns out, has been sneaking away from camp periodically to hook up with Lincoln in his cave, and this time Finn followed her, demanding that Lincoln help him set up a parley session with the Grounders' leader. He wants to try and make peace before his friends can get good at using automatic weapons. He recruits Clark into this peace talk, but Clark is not 100% sold, and she tips off Bellamy, who pulls together Raven and Jasper as a support team. Critically, they bring guns. Finn and Clark arrive at an old bridge that will serve as the meeting place, where they're met by Octavia and Lincoln, who hug romantically, not knowing Octavia's nuttily protective brother is watching from the woods. Bellamy, Jasper, and Raven are surveilling the whole area with their automatic weapons, which should be fine and conducive to peace building. The Grounders' leader, Anya, shows up, and she and Clark have a girl boss off. They are not making a ton of progress on negotiations, and then Jasper spots some Grounders up in the trees, also watching over the meeting. Now, Jasper's still a little jumpy over that getting speared in the chest thing, and predictably, this stresses him out and he starts shooting. Peace talks ruined. Back at camp, our heroes are feeling very low. Bellamy is pissed Octavia is in love with a Grounder. Octavia is pissed Bellamy is so weird about her. Finn is pissed Clark gave away the secret peace talks. Clark is pissed at Finn for his naivete. Everybody is pissed at trigger-happy Jasper. But look, a note of hope. They see the Ark transport ship that the revolutionaries stole streaking across the night sky and assume it is the planned drop. And then the ship pancakes into the ground and explodes, leaving our heroes thinking every adult in their lives is dead, and not in the fun way. When they go to poke around the crash site, they find absolutely everyone who was on that ship is definitely dead, although they do scavenge some rocket fuel. You may have forgotten about Jasper and Smart Monty, but surprisingly, the show has not. Harper, another of the 100, flirts with Jasper, who blows her off because he's still got a crush on Octavia. Monty wisely points out that this will never happen, and Jasper's pissy about it. Ugh, the ache of broken friendship. Speaking of the Apple of Discord, you'll never guess who's back. Yes, miserable and looking a lot like ground beef. It's Murphy. Finn, sappy sucker that he is, won't let Bellamy kill Murphy, so instead Murphy spins them a sad tale about being captured and tortured by the Grounders, getting his fingernails ripped out with pliers, etc., etc. Good thing nobody around here would ever do something like that. Murphy admits he sold them out completely to the Grounders, but now Clark won't let Bellamy kill Murphy either. Again, huge mistake. In 200 years, Murphy's going to be significantly implicated in your mother's terrible tragic death, Clark. And then everyone starts leaking blood. Because Murphy was purposefully infected with hemorrhagic fever by the Grounders and then released so he could give it to all of them. Clark, being smart, dispatches Octavia to go talk to Lincoln and see if he's got a cure. He hasn't got one, and furthermore reveals the sickness is a softening tactic. It won't kill most of the teens, but it will weaken them ahead of an impending Grounder attack that will begin at dawn. Lincoln suggests that he and Octavia should jet, but she ultimately decides to stay behind with her people, most importantly, her brother. Lincoln tells her they are all in terrible danger because the Hundred's advanced weapons and loud ways have drawn the attention of the mysterious Mountain Men. So Bellamy is wigging out because now there's a Grounder attack on the way and he's down a significant number of fighters. But Raven has an idea to make a bomb out of some rocket fuel they scavenged from the crash site of the Ark's big dropship. They'll use it to blow the bridge where they had the failed peace talks, since it connects the Grounders' land with the area around the dropship. Only problem is, now Bellamy's sick too, so who's going to shoot the bomb from a distance in order to explode it, since they have no detonators or fuses, and who's going to plant it on the bridge? Also, Clark is sick now too, so care of the sick has fallen to Octavia, and an apparently reformed and already feeling better Murphy. Finn fawns over sick Clark so much that Raven takes the bomb and leaves, hoping to get blown up or killed so she doesn't have to see this shit anymore. Same though. Alone in the woods, Raven begins to fall ill too, but she soldiers on miserably. Finn realizes she's gone and heads off after her with Jasper, who has to be the replacement sharpshooter, but not smart Monty, who refuses to come because of his earlier fight with Jasper. Raven begins to set up the bomb, though she is delirious from illness at this point. The Grounders are closing on the bridge, Finn is rushing to rescue her, and Jasper has just wasted all of his remaining bullets firing at the bomb and missing. But what's this? It's Smart Monty with the steel chair! He came after them after all, with a new gun for Jasper, who finally succeeds in hitting the tin can full of rocket fuel, blowing the bridge straight to hell. Plenty of Grounders on it at the time. Monty, Jasper, and Finn drag sick Raven back home and set her up in the dropship infirmary, where, delirious, she finally breaks up with Finn, because even though he saved her life, he didn't save it as hard as he wanted to save Clark's. I lied about Murphy reforming. He spent his time as a nurse smothering the guys who helped to hang him, and he's not finished yet. So the Grounder attack is delayed, but it's still gonna happen soon. And after recovering from their illnesses, our heroes get right back to work fortifying the area around the dropship. Jasper and Raven begin crafting landmines and grenades. Smart Monty is working on the radio, and he notices some weird interference. Weird interference that was also recorded on the black box of the crashed Ark ship. He and Raven also produce some makeshift walkie-talkies. Murphy and Octavia, as the lowest of the low, have to stockpile food. And when the smokehouse burns down in a way that's not provably Murphy's fault, everyone else gets reassigned to food collection as well. Clark, Finn, and a red shirt head out into the woods. When the red shirt is shot with arrows, Clark and Finn are abducted by Anya. Turns out Anya's second, a young tween trainee general named Triss, was horribly wounded in the bridge bombing, and Anya wants Clark to save her using advanced space medicine. Obviously, Clark fails at this backwoods pulmonary surgery, and Anya drags Finn off to be executed. Clark tries and fails to effect an escape. When Bellamy, Raven, and Monty head out into the woods to search for Finn and Clark, they discover the wounded red shirt and get separated. After experiencing some more of that mysterious radio interference on his walkie-talkie, Monty disappears. Meanwhile, back in space, yeah, I bet you forgot about space, the Ark is fucked after the dropship debacle. Kane, severely beat up and a bit oxygen deprived, meets up with an absolute tool of an engineer named Wick, and together they manage to rescue Jaha, Sinclair, the lead engineer, and Abby from various locations around the damaged station. Kane, still hell-bent on atoning for the culling, throws himself into harm's way again and again to save the others, and is heartbroken when Jaha reveals there's no hope of saving anyone aboard the station in the long term, what with the terrible damage to the station and the loss of the last dropship. Abby's also very depressed, on account of never seeing her daughter again or getting the chance to reconcile about Abby's role in Clark's dad's death. But Jaha is circumspect and a little ready for death, sipping some fine scotch and watching videos of Wells. Remember Wells? Until he realizes from watching Kid Wells recite cute Unity Day stuff that all the sections that make up the Ark are equipped with their own thrusters, which could theoretically be used to slow re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. But they'll have to separate the substations from the main ring station and plunge them into Earth's atmosphere at just the right time and angle in order to crash land on the eastern seaboard of the United States where our heroes currently are. But the Ark has nothing left to lose, so Sinclair rigs the explosives and everyone else assembles in their home stations to make a padded crash room where everyone is going to tie themselves down and pray. But then the explosives don't fire as intended. Someone has to stay behind on the ring and manually trigger the explosives. Of course, it's gotta be Kane, and he makes a whole thing out of it, his final repentance, blah blah blah, when suddenly the explosives fire, because while Kane was pontificating about having to accept the sacrifice, Jaha just went and did it. The Ark breaks away from the ring and begins falling into the atmosphere towards Earth. Back on the ground, Bellamy is really losing it. Monty, Clark, and Finn are still missing, and everything is going wrong. Then, Jasper catches Murphy, smothering yet another of his enemies. Murphy takes Jasper hostage and seals himself and Jasper inside the dropship. He won't come out unless he can kill Bellamy, the last person directly complicit in his hanging who's still alive. Raven promises Bellamy she can find a way to break into the dropship through an access hatch and open the dropship door to surprise Murphy. So Bellamy trades himself for Jasper and enters the dropship with Murphy, where Murphy sets him to spinning a noose from seatbelts. Meanwhile, Clark is still a prisoner of Anya and discovers that the Grounders have a high commander based in a nearby capital city who has deployed Tristan, a more skilled warrior, to take over the war on the 100 from Anya. Anya's a little rankled by this, but she goes along with Tristan and orders Clark executed by one of her men. But then, Clark's executioner turns out to be Lincoln in disguise. Lincoln has also saved Finn, and 3 of them flee from Tristan's soldiers by hiding in some old mine tunnels. But the mine tunnels are the home of the terrifying Reapers, who are feral cannibals feared even by the Grounders. They keep minecarts full of emaciated, starving victims who seem to have been exsanguinated somehow. We'll explore this in more depth next season. Lincoln lures the Reapers away, allowing Finn and Clark to escape, though Finn has to kill a Reaper with a rock, sullying his life of non-violence. Finn also takes this opportunity to tell Clark that he's in love with her. Clark realizes how cringe this is and blows him off. Bellamy has just about finished his noose, and Raven, hidden beneath the floor with Jasper, has just about figured how to short out the dropship door and open it so the others can get to Murphy. But it's too late. Murphy puts the noose on Bellamy's neck and gives his villain soliloquy, culminating in kicking the supports out from under Bellamy's feet and hanging him, just like Bellamy did to Murphy. And when Murphy starts hearing noises under the floor, he also starts shooting. The dropship door opens, the other teens flood in, sending Murphy scuttling up to the upper floors of the dropship. He can't find any more ammo up there, but he does find the gunpowder stockpile. And so while the others cut Bellamy down and save his life, Murphy uses all the remaining gunpowder to blow a Looney Tunes hole in the side of the ship and escape. Thus, Clark and Finn arrive home from their very stressful excursion to find an absolute clusterfuck. And worst of all, Raven was hit in the back by one of Murphy's bullets and may yet die. Clark convinces the 100 that they need to follow Lincoln's advice to flee to the east and find a more friendly sea-dwelling Grounder tribe there, but that's short-lived because as soon as they leave their fortifications, Grounders attack and begin killing them, so they have to reassess. Raven, semi-conscious, suggests they take shelter in the dropship and rig up the engines to fire with the last of their fuel, which will obliterate anyone standing outside. Of course, that is very difficult when Raven is barely alive and has to give instructions verbally to Clark and Jasper about how to re-engineer the engines, while the rest of our heroes hold the line against the attacking Grounders to buy time. And Finn runs to Lincoln's cave to steal the last of his medicine, which might be able to save Raven. The Grounders seem surprisingly knowledgeable about Bellamy's plans, and oh, what's this? They captured the escaped Murphy and have been torturing him for information once again. Hashtag just Murphy things. So, our heroes desperately need to change the game, especially at the front lines, where Bellamy and Octavia are isolated and surrounded and unable to move because of an injury to Octavia's leg. But what's this? It's Finn and Lincoln with the steel chair. They've drawn the attention of the Reapers and lured them into the Grounder army. So, taking advantage of the distraction, Bellamy heads back to the dropship while Lincoln spirits Octavia away to heal her. Finn also makes it back, providing Clark with the medicine for Raven just in time, but then he runs back outside to save Bellamy, who's just arrived. The Grounders are overwhelming the camp. Bellamy and Finn are trapped outside, and Clark has no choice but to pull the lever that seals the doors. At the last moment, Anya leaps inside the dropship to kill the 100 herself, but is quickly overpowered. Clark won't let the others kill her, even though Miller really wants to. Yeah, you forgot about Miller, didn't you? I never do. As the Grounders swarm the dropship, Jasper finishes rigging up the rockets and fires them, obliterating the Grounders in a hellish inferno of rocket fuel. Also, apparently, Bellamy and Finn. R.I.P. The next morning, Clark opens the dropship doors to face the horrific remains of her command decisions, a vast blackened clearing filled with charred corpses. A few miles away, one section of the Ark has landed safely, and Kane and Abby emerge into the beautiful mountains of British Columbia, western Maryland, experiencing open air for the first time in their lives. Jaha makes a final radio call to them, then retires to a corner of the ring to await death when the air shuts down. And the 100, now like the 79, emerge into the wreckage of their first home on the ground and are immediately swathed in some kind of red gas deployed by a group of armed people in full hazmat suits. These are the legendary mountain men, whom even Lincoln feared. The gas causes our heroes to pass out, leaving them entirely vulnerable. Clark awakens in a mysterious, clean white cell, which is very well appointed. It even has Van Gogh's Starry Night on one wall. And who does she spot through the window in the cell across the hall? Why, it's Smart Monty, who disappeared before the final battle could even begin. Where could they be? Thus ends Season 1. Clark's crucial lever. You're wondering why this is a whole subsegment of what happens, but I assure you that this is a motif. At the end of every season, Clark will pull some kind of lever or mechanical switch in order to resolve the overall conflict of the season. And this season, Clark pulls the lever that closes the dropship doors, leaving Finn and Bellamy outside and protecting everyone else as she has Jasper immolate 300 enemy soldiers. The moral of the season: if you're going to attempt an extrajudicial murder, make sure you finish it. Just kidding. The moral of the season is we can't do whatever the hell we want. Nothing goes right for the 100 till Bellamy accepts that leadership requires compromise and service to the people he's leading, and that doesn't happen until he realizes his selfishness has gotten hundreds of people killed back up on the Ark. The moral also is you can't save everybody, Clark, as memorably stated by Miller. She had to sacrifice, apparently, Bellamy and Finn in order to save all the other people depending on her. For better or for worse, she's going to take this lesson very much to heart in the future. Best episodes of the season. The best episodes of the season are episode 4, episode 10, and the last two, episodes 12 and 13. Episode 4, Murphy's Law. I like this episode because it's about Murphy, in that it really establishes what a selfish little gremlin he is, how he has no qualms about hanging a child for base revenge. Plus, it's funny to see everyone turn on him so fast, because he really sucks. Episode 10, I Am Become Death. Murphy's return spells trouble for everybody, and that's funny. He literally gives them all hemorrhagic fever. Also, he's here to kill them separately due to personal reasons. Also, this is the episode where Raven finally dumps Finn, which she should have done literally years ago. Episodes 12 and 13, We Are Grounders Part 1 and Part 2, these episodes are just really solid, probably best in the season. The big battle that's been building up all season between the 100 and the Grounders was paid off really effectively. Every significant character contributes their part to the story of the battle, or its build up in a way that makes sense for them. Even Miller. Also, we get some great payoff for them letting Murphy back in, as he hangs Bellamy and gives a 5-minute villain speech about how he just can't let this whole hanging thing go. And the part where the adults launch the Ark into Earth's atmosphere is genuinely thrilling. That would legit be so scary. And then it's very satisfying and genuinely touching to see Abby and Kane finally arrive on the ground and have all their dreams literally come true. And since that's where we leave them this season, we don't have to reckon with the fact that in the next 6 seasons after this, they're just going to suffer. Poor taste watch. Things that were in poor taste in this season. Number 1, Octavia and Lincoln getting together. You cannot convince me that Ricky Whittle is supposed to resemble anything but a fully adult man in this show. Like a fully adult man, like a 30-year-old man. Like he's huge and he's jacked. And canonically in the story, Octavia cannot be more than like 17 at best. And this is sketchy, and I know there are no age of consent laws in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, but that doesn't mean it doesn't skeeve me out a little bit. Also, it's funny that the other teens mock Octavia for this relationship by calling her a grounder pounder. Another thing that's in poor taste is the indigenous coding on the grounders, and especially the Reapers, who are like the grounders, but worse, right? The look of the grounders is like 1/3 Vikings, 1/3 Mad Max, 1/3 indigenous stereotypes, which does contribute to the show's themes about colonization, colonialism, especially like American colonization, which is going to pick up also in the ensuing seasons. But in these times, using those signifiers is certainly in poor taste. Note to all of us writing speculative fiction that deals with colonialism, we should dial it down with the war whoops and the beads and the face tattoos and the like bloodthirsty hostility, cannibalism for the hostile indigenous people of the colonized space. Also in poor taste, not for any like social justice wokeness reason though, but the like CGI skeletons who are writhing and suffering as Clark incinerates them with the rocket fuel are in poor taste in like the best possible way. I do believe that this show has like an important like exploitation grindhouse gore thread, especially in the early seasons, and we see that here. Atrocities so far. We're in the early days of the show. We've racked up really only a few atrocities. When they lynch Murphy, even though he had it coming, it's still an atrocity because ultimately, as fun as it would be, we should not do extrajudicial killings, especially of people who, as it turns out, are not guilty of the crime we've accused them of. When the teens torture Lincoln, that's obviously an atrocity. Like, it truly is horrific. When the Grounders use Murphy for biological warfare, that's an atrocity because biological warfare is bad. When Kane vents all those people to save oxygen, it's definitely an atrocity, although it wasn't technically a crime against humanity because they volunteered. When Clark roasts those 300 grounders with the rocket fuel, again, I'm not sure if it's a crime against humanity in the legal sense, but I am willing to consider it an atrocity because we spend so much time watching them like die in horrible agony, and we look at their skeletons, and they look like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru in Star Wars. And finally, the nuclear war. Was the nuclear war a crime against humanity? Experts say no, but I'm willing to consider the nuclear war that is the impetus of this whole story to be at least an atrocity, because according to the 100 Wikia, 11 billion people died. So that puts us at 6 atrocities to date for the show, and I promise there will be more. Apocalypses so far. Just the one, the original nuclear war that destroyed the Earth. And that may set you wondering, why then have I laid aside this segment called Apocalypses So Far so early in the game? And to that I would warn you, it will see more use. Season rating. I would rate this season 60 out of 100 possible teen convicts dropped from space. This season is the weakest in my opinion, as first seasons often are. It suffers from an over-reliance on excruciatingly familiar teen soap tropes, like the interminable Clark Finn Raven love triangle. Some of the characters are very thin at this point. Octavia, for example, is really a shadow of herself and painfully defined pretty much only by which boyfriend she's with at the moment. And while Maria Avgeropoulos' performance is going to develop really well in the later seasons to encompass some crazy character changes that Octavia goes through, at this point it's kind of undefined. She's basically just a pretty girl on a teenager show. Also, Finn is so awful. I feel a little bit bad for saying this, but I just find him so ungodly grating every time he's on screen. He's just so fucking annoying. Also, the timeline of this show's backstory is completely stupid. It has the opposite problem of Fallout 3, where the writers had no idea how long 200 years is actually in scale of human development. In the 100, the nuclear war was supposedly only like 97 years ago, but the Grounders have a completely articulated culture and language that's totally different from modern American culture and has no memory of the significance of the land that they live on. But they're only about 1.5 generations separated from people who lived like we do now, and there was no like purposeful like cultural genocide. There was just the like terrible nuclear war. So people who remembered that time would have still survived and like been able to talk about it. All the monuments in DC are gone except for the Lincoln Memorial, which is like they are huge marble edifices. They probably would survive in some capacity, even if the nuke dropped like pretty nearby. The whole city has been replaced with a pine forest, partially because the show is filmed in British Columbia, but also it takes like 97 years just to get like a good sized tree. For me, in my mind, I basically just swapped the length of time between IP and backstory nuclear war with Fallout 3 and the 100. It just makes more sense if we imagine at least 200 years passing between the nuclear war and the 100 arriving on Earth. Also, it doesn't make anything in the show's backstory not work, and in fact, it makes it work better. Nonetheless, there's still a lot of great material in this season. The developing friendship rivalry between Clark and Bellamy, I'm not going to address the shipping stuff because I don't care. Clark and Bellamy are two great characters who always have great on-screen chemistry together and who are equally interesting when they are allied and when they are opposed, which is a hard balance to strike and it's very satisfying to watch. We also get the beginning of Kane's fantastic development from the guy who will sacrifice anyone to save everyone to the true moral center of the show. He will literally be crucified and resurrected before his tenure on this show is over. Murphy is also here, and he's horrible. This is back in his choke for a choke era, before his inevitable recuperation into being a tolerable enough character to be on the show full time. It's fun to see. The immolation of the Grounders, which was so bad CGI gory. It's absolutely classic. The hilarious radiation creatures, which honestly kind of get forgotten about in future seasons, at least until season 6. And the setup of the Mountain Men, which is going to pay dividends next season. So, all in all, is it the greatest season of television ever? No. Is it entertainment? Yes. Is it going to take us to some batshit crazy places that are absolutely soaked in blood? Oh my god, yes. That brings us to a wrap on the 100 Season 1, the We Are Grounders season. This is your Ween, signing off. May we meet again.
breaking in.